It's Todd with Church Playbook. Hope you guys are having a good day so far. And listen, we're going to talk about the ministries that your church needs to start, or probably even more likely, the kind of ministries that your churches need to stop in order to get your church to 200. And before we dive into that, if you'll just take a moment and hit the like button on this video, if you'll subscribe to the channel. I don't personally need the likes, but what it does is it actually tells YouTube to put this video in front of other pastors who need these free resources, because I ain't getting paid to put this up on YouTube. So, hey, all of this is coming out of my book, the Church Playbook, that you can actually get for free by going to thechurchplaybook.com. If you'll just pay a couple of bucks for shipping. I've already paid for the book, and there's that. So one of the sort of the core truths about most pastors I know is they love their community. They love the people in their town. We want to put the gospel in front of as many men, women, teens, and children as possible. And so what we will do, and there's unintended consequences here, is we try and put as many choices and options in front of them for opportunities to come to the church to connect. And so you can have your church open 5, 6, 7 nights a week with well-intended ministries that are going to be low attended, because the average size church in America is right around 75 people. Again, the Church Playbook is not designed to help you break the 200 barrier. That requires some fundamental shifts in the structure of the church, and we're not trying to do that. But I'm convinced that your church, there's 200 people in your community that would love to go to your church if they knew you existed. And so Rick Warren says that people will go to a friendly church, but they will only stay if they make a friend. And so we as pastors try and put all of these options and opportunities out into the church. We've got Monday night prayer meeting. We've got Tuesday night women's ministry, Wednesday night men's, Thursday night choir / youth group, and then we've got some other things going on during the weekend, and then of course there's Sunday. And so what happens, because the average size church is right around 75 people, that just the natural laws of that mean that you only have a certain number of actual leaders, because y'all understand there's a difference between a helper versus a leader. And so you may have some well-intended helpers that are saying, hey, pastor, we ought to have a ministry to the homeless. We ought to have a ministry to the escorts. We ought to have a ministry to the addicted. We need to have a ministry to underwater basket weaver, empty nesters, whatever. And so what ends up happening is the church calendar gets so full, but because you only have a limited number of leaders, those opportunities don't get a lot of traction. And so, and by the way, and y'all understand this, man, it's really hard to kill something once you've given birth to it. And so you got these full schedules, these full calendars, and I'm speaking from my own experience here, some frustration on our part as pastors, because we're just not making the kind of impact, even though we've got all of these opportunities, we're not making the kind of impact that we're hoping to make. And so here in the church playbook, I talk about, remember, this is coming from the context of me being a football coach, and accidentally, and figuring this out in sort of retrospect, I started leading my church the way that I was coaching my football team, and we went 200, 400, 700, 800, pretty quickly, because of the principles, again, that I sort of accidentally transferred over from coaching a football team to leading the church. So in the church playbook, I use a lot of sports vernacular, and so there's a chapter in there on choosing the right offense and defense for your team, for your church. And so in football, we've got offense and defense and special teams. And so the way that I define offense is anything that your church does to move the mission of the church forward. Okay? Defense would be anything that protects the community and the unity of your church. And that's where you're really kind of building some relationships. And then special teams are some sort of auxiliary ministries that are good to do, but they're not vital to the church. And so the idea at you as the head coach, you need to put your best people on your most important ministries. And so, and by the way, if you've got 25, 35, 50, 75, 100 people in your church, again, you've only got a couple leaders. And so what as a church can you do to rally everyone together to move the mission of the church forward? Okay, and I mean rally everyone. Okay, not rally them to 17 different things on the calendar, but rally everyone in your church to move the mission of the church forward. Okay, what is one thing that you, as the head coach, put your best people on a defensive ministry? And I'm going to give you some examples in a second before I get out of here. But what can you as a church do defensively to protect the community and the unity of your church? Okay, so when my church was brand new, and I mean, by the way, our church celebrates 8 years, 8 years in April, and so I mean that's right around the corner from the time that I was filming this here. Hey, by the way, if you have questions, comments, concerns, throw them in the comment section right now. Whether you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube, I would love to talk to you guys. We can always do a little Q&A here. But so when my church was brand new and we only had a few people, I had to make some tough decisions because there's a lot of things that I wanted our church to do. But I had to be a good steward of the resources that God had given me. And by the, resources for the church, time, people, and dollars. And so I decided, you know what? The people in my community, when they finally decide in their heart to give God a shot. So, I mean, which, again, the people in San Diego, where I live here, when they finally decide to give God a shot, it's they're kind of on their last shot, right? Now, so when the average Joe in my town wakes up and says, okay, I need to get my life straight. I need to, check God out. What day of the week? Yeah, they don't even have to have grown up in church, right? I mean, they don't have to have this rich traditional church history. When they decide to give God a shot, they're thinking church is on Sunday. So they're not thinking about our men's ministry on Tuesday night. They're not thinking about our choir practice on Wednesday. They're not thinking about all of those other potential front doors, small groups, growth groups, whatever you call them. They're not thinking about that. They're thinking about Sunday morning. So in the early days, I was like, okay, I need to take the several dozen people in my church, and I need to put my best leaders on Sunday. That's my offensive ministry to move the church forward. And so we were very intentional. We still are very intentional about not just what we would preach, but how we would preach it. So, listen, I'm a Bible guy. I love going verse by verse through the Word. Now, I also preach verse with verse through different topics in the Word, but I love when we go through the epistles or when we do character profiles on some of the Old Testament greats. I love going verse by verse. But my assumptions about the kind of knowledge that people have when they walk into my church changed because more than 90% of the people that live in my town are unchurched. And so listen, I'm going to preach the word, and I'm going to preach it true. I'm going to rightly divide the word of truth. But the way that I'm going to say it is going to be accessible to everybody in the room. And so we said, hey, Sunday morning, that's when we're going to move the mission of the church forward offensively. Okay, so, Jesus said, hey, I'm going to build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it, will not stand against it. Gates are a defensive mechanism. It's to keep people out. So the church is supposed to be on the move. We're supposed to be offensively minded. And so, hey, Sunday morning was the day that we were going to do that, which meant I needed another day in the week where we could be defensive. And again, defense in the church is anything that protects and builds up the community and the unity of the church. It's where we needed to do some discipleship. And so, our church, we do sermon-based small groups. And so my discipleship director would sit in church on Sunday, and as I'm preaching, they would write down questions and additional scriptures that all of our groups would go through during the week, so that our growth group leaders could simply just read off of the list these questions and then say, hey, Bobby, can you read this, this verse? And hey, let's talk about that, what that means. Okay. And so, we know that life change happens better in circles, not in rows. So on Sunday morning, they sit in a row, but on Tuesday night, they're sitting in a circle in someone's living room. Okay. So for us, that's what we decided early on. That was going to be our Sunday was going to be our offensive day. The rest of the week, because we have groups on different nights of the week, that was going to be our defensive days. And then we've got special relationships with, all of the different schools. I mean, we'll go in and do, landscaping. We'll do projects around the school because the school budgets have been cut. They can't afford to keep up on certain projects. And so, we'll go in and help. We've sponsored a maternity home where pregnant, homeless teenagers get taken off the street. They meet Jesus. They finish their high school education. They safely deliver their baby. and they're in these homes, and that's what we do for the schools, what we do for these moms, what we do for the homeless in our town. Those are what we call special teams. And so if you had to look on a calendar and divide up, hold up for a second. If you had to divide up your time and what you're focusing on, I would say you need to spend 60% of your week, 60 of your week, focused on your offense, getting ready for Sunday, preparing for your sermon, making sure that you're saying it. You're not censoring the truth, but you're saying it in a way that everybody in the room can understand. That takes time and effort. Then you're spending, 20% or 25%. Actually, no, I think in the book I say 30%. So 60% on offense, 30% on defense, getting growth groups ready and whatnot. And then 10% of your calendar year is devoted to these special events where you're serving the under-resourced and the underprivileged. So, hey, I know we've got a handful of people that are watching this live right now. Again, if you got any questions, throw them in the comment section. Would love to chat with you. If you're watching the replay of this, you can still ask a question. I promise that I'll come back and answer it. So, hey, just last thing before I get out of here. Not only is everything that I talked about in our time together today in the church playbook, but I go into excruciating detail in what we call the Church Playbook Academy. It's a 6-week video course. I invite you into a private Facebook group where I coach you personally, and then you have access to the 6 modules on video. I throw in a ton of resources, and then again, you have access to me through this private Facebook coaching group. And all you got to do is go to thechurchplaybook.com/academy. I'm running a deal right now. It's 60% off. Normally it's $497 for the 6 weeks. Right now it's $197. And again, you can go to thechurchplaybook.com, get this for free. Just pay a couple bucks for shipping. And then, but you can actually go to the academy and we can get some one-on-one time that way. So, hey, throw a question, comment, or concern in the comment section here. Would love to chat with you guys, but y'all have a great day.